Hi instructors, Professor Kim here. I've got a wonderful game to share with you that I just incorporated into my classroom this fall. Now my learning objective was active listening, but the other skills that your students are going to pick up when they play this game are memory, social bonding and social group work, and organization. This game also throws a huge creativity curveball their way. It is When I Dream. Thanks for joining me, instructor, for this brief overview of the game and some suggestions about how to incorporate those learning objectives that you want your students to practice in the classroom. When I Dream is a game where there are players on different teams, and these teams are trying to either get the dreamer to say the correct word or not. Now, what that looks like is one of the players at the table will cover their eyes and keep them closed for the duration of the night phase. And everyone else at the table is going to see a word, and they're going to give a clue to the person whose eyes are closed, and they're going to go in clockwise order. Now, the player with their eyes closed can make a guess at any time, but they only get one guess. And they want their guess to be the word that everyone's looking at. Here's the trick. Some people are going to throw in clues that maybe aren't as close or accurate to the thing itself because they don't want them to guess the right word. That's where the active listening comes into play. I like to focus on actively listening to every clue so I can suss out who do I think is on my team who's giving me clues that all sound like the same thing. And so you're kind of listening for those synonyms or those descriptions that all line up. Let's jump into that student tutorial right now. Hi students, you're playing When I Dream today. This is a game that's going to work your active listening skills, your creativity, organization, and group thinking. This game is semi-cooperative. And what that means is there are going to be some players who have a secret identity of the fairy, a secret identity of the boogeyman, or a secret identity of the sandman. That's the semi-cooperative aspect. You have a team, but there are other teams in the game with different agendas. One player at the table is going to become the dreamer. The dreamer is going to cover their eyes. They are not going to look throughout the duration of their turn. This is the nighttime phase. During nighttime, you're going to dream. And everyone at the table is going to, in clockwise order, give you clues to identify what card is showing at the top of the deck. The word is sea, S-E-A, as in the body of water. Now you don't know what the clue is because your eyes are closed, but everybody else can see it. Everyone is going to, in clockwise order, give a clue to get you to say the word sea or not, depending on what their team is. Once your turn is over, after this sand timer runs out, you will then have the opportunity, while your eyes are still closed, to remember your dream. And this is where the storytelling and the creativity comes into play. Of course, memory skills as well. What kinds of clues are you going to give on your turn? Depends on which team you're in. So, if you are on the fairy team, you want players to successfully guess the word on the card that's showing. You want that dreamer to have a good dream. So if you see the word sea and you want someone to say that, you might say ocean, because ocean is close to a sea. It's also a body of water, and it gets someone in the ballpark to say the word sea. Now, if I say ocean, the next player can't say ocean. They can't say sea as well. And so they're trying to get you to say this with clue by clue by clue, building up all of these associations and synonyms and words that get you to say it. That's what a fairy does. They want you to get this correct. Here's where some of the thwarting or confusion comes into play, which requires you to be very critical and active as you listen to everyone's clues. Boogeyman is trying to throw you off of the word that's on the card. They don't want you to say this. They want you to get it incorrect. So let's say the first two players to the left of the dreamer are fairies, and they want them to get it right. They want the dreamer to get this correct. They might say ocean, and then the next person after that says water, and then the player after that doesn't want them to get it correct because they have boogeyman on their card. So they want to say something that throws them off, but not by too much. If you try to do something super obvious, like let's say that boogeyman said zebra. Zebra doesn't have anything to do with ocean or water, but maybe they could say something like whale. Now, whale doesn't necessarily get you closer to sea, but it also feels like it fits in the water, and it's a really clever misdirection for the boogeyman to be close, but not really close enough to get someone to say that particular word. Now, that's how the boogeyman works. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you give a clue for someone, it must be one word only. Remember in my example, the word was sea, and I gave a clue ocean, water, and then my last clue, I said don't say zebra, instead say whale. That is a great example of two different teams, of course they're secret, you don't know who everyone is at the table, giving one-word clues. So if the person who's dreaming wants to guess what they think the word is, they can do so at any time. They don't have to wait a certain amount of time. They don't have to wait for everyone to give a clue. They can guess it at any time. Now, once they guess it, they have one guess. That's it. They get to say one thing, and if they're right, the card goes on the fairy side. If they're wrong, the card goes on the boogeyman side. Once a card is placed, because it's either passed, which the dreamer can just say pass. Passes are automatic incorrect guesses. If they don't say the right word, it's an incorrect guess. It goes on the boogeyman side. The player needs to know there's a new card in play. Just have someone at the table who's always saying, new card. And then the player clues will just continue from the last player who gave one. It just continues clockwise. And so the turn order never changes with clues. You just continue the next one with a brand new clue. And that's going to help the dreamer whose eyes are closed know, oh, I finished my last one, I made a guess, I need to remember that word. Let's say as the dreamer, I guessed river. I think river is the right answer, but I don't know that it goes on the boogeyman side. So I'm trying to remember the word river and move on to a new clue. Now for the Sandman identity. If you receive this card, you are playing a more complex, more nuanced game than the fairy team and the boogeyman team, because you care about what they both are doing. They will get a better score based on how balanced the dream is. They want as equal as possible good dreams and bad dreams. You have one card in the boogeyman side and no cards in the fairy side. The Sandman will want them to get it correct because they want to even out the score. So at times, players might confuse the Sandman with a boogeyman or a fairy because they're playing with that particular agenda, but they keep going back and forth. Now that can also be quite telling as well. If you see that someone is really helpful at times and then at other times not so helpful, you might think, oh, they're just the Sandman and they're trying to balance out the score. All of the correct cards are put on the fairy side, the yellow side. All of the incorrect guesses or the skipped cards go into the boogeyman side, and the dreamer will try to recall their dream. Now, you can recall all the words that you think you guessed, even if it's on the boogeyman side, but if you guess and say every one of these cards on the fairy side after your turn is over and you say the words here in a story as you recall. So if C is in your story, you might say, I was walking along the Dead Sea, and what I saw next shocked me. And then you continue telling your story. You've said the word sea, but you are also including it in a story to make it more memorable, which is the point. Because if a dreamer can successfully name all of the cards that go on the fairy side at the end of their turn, they get +2 points. If you say words that showed up on the boogeyman side, that's okay, there's no penalty for it. But the key is you have to name all of the words that showed up over here. Now, because your eyes are still closed, you may not know which cards were successful or not, so you're trying to recall just about everything that happened in your dream session in the previous night, which was your turn. The number of fairy, boogeyman, and sandman cards depend on how many players are in the game. So in a 7-player game, you'll have 3 fairies, 2 boogeymen, and 2 sandmen. You will take those cards, put the others back in the box, you'll shuffle them up, and then you will deal them to every player. Every player is going to keep that information secret, and then we will start the game. Alright, just a couple tips and suggestions, and then you can get started playing When I Dream. My biggest tip for you is to always take advantage of the dreamer role. When you're the dreamer, you don't have a secret identity. Everyone else at the table does. And so what you want to do is get as many good dreams that night as possible, because you earn points as the dreamer based on the correct guesses, which is in the yellow fairy pile. And if you remember all of those words in your storytelling afterwards, you get +2. That means this game is individually scored. And every single time there's a dreamer, you deal out new secret identities. So you might be working with the same people from round to round, meaning you might be with the same fairy or the same boogeyman or sandman team, but you might not be. You might get a totally different secret identity from round to round. Definitely have fun with it though, because the more fun you have, the more you get into the storytelling aspect of the dreamer, the easier you're going to remember what those words are. And a lot of this game is based on memory, which means you have to remember your dreams at night. Hopefully you can recall those words. Another thing, when you're giving a clue, be precise and considerate about your clue. Of course, it's going to either be helpful or not helpful depending on what team you're on, but just remember those clues have to be one word only. Make sure to organize your thoughts and pay attention. I can't emphasize that enough. You're not allowed to repeat clues when it comes around to you, and don't forget, you're going to be the dreamer at some point. So make sure that you're ready for that job. When your eyes are closed, it's going to be really hard to pay attention. It's going to be really hard to think, particularly when everyone's giving a clue in succession. And literally clues can come as fast as they go in clockwise order. And so you're processing a lot of information in a very short amount of time. And so do your best, again, to actively listen and to pay attention to the people you think you can trust on your team, or at least who you think is on your team. When you play again and get a different role, you're going to see that there's different strategies for those particular identities. Have fun figuring those out and trying new techniques to be successful in When I Dream. Thanks for tuning in to my Board Games in the Classroom series for When I Dream. As you can see, this game has so much potential in the classroom, and you can also start to see how this game will work online as well. With players looking at a collective word you can share either visually or type in the chat bar. One player has their eyes closed, they still can't see anything, but they can hear everyone's clues as they give them around the table. In this case, it's just online. Do not hesitate to adapt this game to that online remote learning situation that you're probably dealing with. Until next time, have a great time in the classroom and let me know what you think in the comments below.